Now pay attention to the obstacle and the bell. There is a flood today. Mars is our destination, the one to rule. In a house like this, where life's search for rovers is entangled, a planet where only machines are ruling, where Curiosity rover celebrates its birthday every year on August 5th and even sings a birthday song for itself, perhaps the loneliest birthday in the entire universe. Not just because Mars is so fascinating to us, but because of its potential, its mysteries, and its possibilities, which is why we have been so attracted to it from the start. Greetings friends, you are watching Documentary Library and I am your friend Sheshi. In today's episode, we will learn about Mars or the planet Mangal. Mars is the fourth planet in our solar system. It is also the second smallest planet in our solar system after Mercury. Located 230 million kilometers away from the Sun, Mars is also the last terrestrial planet. Mars appears red due to the presence of iron oxide or rust on its surface. And for this reason, Mars is also known as the red planet. The name Mars is derived from the Roman god of war, Mars. Hence, in Latin, Mars is called Mangal. The diameter of Udua is almost half the diameter of V. However, if we consider the surface area, Udua's surface area is almost 3 times the surface area of V. Similarly, the core of the Mangal planet is also made of dense metallic material, which has a radius of about 70 kilometers. Iron and sulfur are mainly found in its core. Above the core is a part made of silicate, which is less dense than the core. After the mantle, the crust is the uppermost layer, which has an average thickness of about 31 miles. The crust contains iron, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, oxygen, and other minerals. But the atmosphere of Mars is constantly thinning due to the lack of oxygen. It is believed that billions of years ago, life could have existed on Mars just like Earth. But due to constant climate change, life on Mars would have ended long ago. It is also believed that about 4 billion years ago, Mars had water suddenly disappeared. The reasons for its disappearance are believed to be due to solar winds and radiation, which gradually eroded its atmosphere, and over time, life on Mars became extinct. A big question was, how did the magnetosphere suddenly disappear? Behind this, a big speculation was that some kind of fear or upheaval from Pluto would have reached Mars, and due to this terrifying upheaval, the magnetosphere of Mars would have disappeared. The reason for the non-existence of the magnetosphere is that its atmosphere and ecosystem flew into space. And we got the evidence of this from Mars Global Surveyor and Mars Express, which detected ions from the atmosphere of Mars flying into space. Even in the vicinity of Mars, there is a very thin atmosphere, which is only a fraction of the atmospheric pressure on Earth. In its atmosphere, about 96% is carbon dioxide, 1.93% is argon, and nitrogen is found. Its traces of oxygen and water vapor are also found on Mars. The gravity on Mars is only 38% of that on Earth. And for this reason, the atmosphere of Mars has thinned to the point where it is much thinner than Earth's atmosphere. The tilt of Mars is approximately 25 degrees, which is almost identical to the tilt of Earth. And for this reason, the entire planet is in a state of limited visibility on Monday, similar to the Earth's weather patterns. However, the weather conditions on Mars are much more extreme than on Earth. This is because a year on Mars lasts 687 Earth days, which makes the seasons twice as long. A day on Mars is 24 hours, 49 minutes, and 35 seconds long. On Mars, temperatures in the winter can drop to as low as minus 143 degrees Celsius at the poles, while in the summer it can get up to 35 degrees Celsius at the equator. Mars is approximately half the diameter of Earth, and due to its distance from the Sun, sunlight on Mars is only about 43% as bright as it is on Earth. Mars appears much smaller than the Sun, and due to its distance, Mars is a very cold planet, where the average temperature remains around minus 45 degrees Celsius. Due to Mars's orbit being more elliptical, when it gets closer to the Sun, severe storms occur on Mars. The storms on Mars are so big and powerful that they can engulf the entire planet in their fury. The entire planet Mars is covered in this stormy haze. These storms are considered to be the biggest dust storms in our solar system. But dust storms are not considered as significant for the search of life on Mars. There is also such a question, the search for which we are still doing today. Is there water on Mars? If we look at the formation of Mars today, it cannot exist on Mars in liquid form. Why is the possibility of finding water in liquid form on Mars very less due to the low pressure of the Mars atmosphere? However, this possibility is only for a short period of time, until the temperature on Mars is also conducive to it. In fact, there are two polar ice caps on Mars, just like on Earth, which remain frozen throughout the Martian year. However, these ice caps have not revealed any signs of water on Mars. On the poles of Mars, about 30% of the atmosphere freezes solid in the winters, in which carbon dioxide takes the form of dry ice. The frozen carbon dioxide is referred to as dry ice. Dry ice is frozen on the North Pole. It is 1 meter thick, but it is also thicker on the South Pole. Its thickness is more than 26 feet. When the sun shines on this ice, it converts into a gas in a process known as sublimation. Scientists believe that up to 70% of the water trapped beneath the polar caps could be liquid, which is covered by a layer of dry ice. This amount of water is so vast that if these polar ice caps were to melt and form a liquid, it would submerge the entire planet Mars under 36 feet of water. But researcher CIB believes that there was once a sandy ocean several kilometers deep on the northern plains of Mars. In March, scientists said that if there was such an ocean on Mars, its size would be comparable to the Arctic Ocean on Earth. This estimate has been derived by scientists by keeping in mind the topography of Mars. Why did the Curiosity rover push for more deuterium on this planet than on the Gale crater? However, not all of these findings have been fully confirmed, and this issue has become controversial. Why doesn't the climate model of Mars show us something like this? That Mars will remain so warm that water will remain liquid there. But man cannot accept such a defeat. According to a 2015 study, water can also be present below the surface of Mars, which is very far from the Curiosity rover. A mission named InSight has been created to search for underground water on Mars, which will dig into the Martian surface. The journey to Mars and the solar system is not less than a big challenge even for physicists. The valley created on Mars is 2,485 miles long, 435 miles wide, and 4.35 miles deep, which covers about 20% of the surface of Mars. We know this great valley as Valles Marineris. This valley is so vast that it spans 1/5 of the circumference of Mars. The largest valley known on any planet is the Grand Canyon, which is only 4 miles wide and 2 miles deep. Compared to Valles Marineris, the Grand Canyon seems very small. But compared to the valleys on Mars, this canyon seems very small. The theory that scientists have is that the Jovian moon was geologically active. Then, from the volcanic eruptions, this canyon was formed in the thin layer of gas. But due to the lack of evidence, this mystery remains a topic of debate among us. The formation of this canyon is also believed to be due to the impact of a large asteroid. But to know the truth, we probably need to do more research. The mystery of the Mangal Valley has become such a riddle for scientists which has not been solved yet. The northern hemisphere of Mars is completely flat and similar to the plains, but the other hemisphere, the southern hemisphere, is completely different and is high from the northern hemisphere. This hemisphere is filled with large impact craters and volcanoes. There are about 43,000 craters on Mars which have a diameter of more than 5 kilometers. Our science today still cannot explain the lack of plate tectonics in the middle of these hemispheres on Mars, but the effort is still ongoing today. Some explanations have also come up, which are quite plausible to a certain extent, but for some reason they cannot be accepted. One explanation is that there will always be a big moon in the northern hemisphere at some point in the past. But it is not necessary that the sea was only water. It could have been some kind of liquid methane, the reason for which the northern hemisphere is completely flat. One explanation is that a large asteroid hit Mars's northern hemisphere, creating a flat plain. However, no definitive explanation has been accepted yet. Mars is also the biggest target in our solar system, which is known as Olympus Mons. This massive volcano is about 15.5 miles high, which is spread over a large diameter of 372 miles. This height is almost 3 times the height of Mount Everest, the highest peak on Earth. Olympus Mons is not just a volcano on Mars, but a big question is whether there are still active volcanoes on Mars today. There are also river-like features on Mars. This makes us wonder if we are wrong in thinking that there was never water on Mars, or if our assumption is correct after all. But there is also a probability which we often learn about in schools. In the mid-70s, Viking 1 was the first to land on Mars and search for life. Viking 1 conducted some experiments on the planet Mars, in which it found evidence of some living microorganisms. However, these evidences were later dismissed in further research. It was argued that Vikings' experiments were not sophisticated enough to detect signs of life. And there is also a possibility that the living organisms might have died due to the harsh conditions of the Vikings' tests. Hence, no life was detected in Vikings' experiments. Not only was Vikings' search dismissed, but it also did not shake the beliefs of the biologists. After this, several Mars missions such as Viking Lander, Spirit Opportunity rover, Phoenix Lander, and Curiosity rover were launched to search for life on Mars. These missions have provided evidence that supports these theories. According to current estimates, this planet will remain habitable for a long time to come. According to the information obtained from the Phoenix Mars lander, magnesium, sodium, potassium, chloride, and some other soil nutrients are present on Mars, which support life. In 2003, Mars Express detected a large amount of methane gas on Mars. Finding methane on Mars was a big discovery because methane is a biologically produced gas. So this could be a strong indication that there is still life on Mars today. This methane gas was seeping out from different locations on Mars. The Curiosity rover also detected methane on Mars. In the northern hemisphere of Mars during the summer, at a distance of 18, 19, 20 meters, methane gas is released. And this process continues to accelerate rapidly. Is the Martian atmosphere genic? On the possibility of microbial life, 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 on the possibility of microbial life. But life can exist. But methane can also come from non-biological processes such as for Mars. It can be from which this gas is being made. Methane can also be produced from the ultraviolet radiation on the dust particles falling on Mars. All these facts have slightly clouded our imagination of life on Mars, but our imagination has not yet been limited. The whole world is excited to settle on Mars, and in the coming future we are definitely going to Mars, which has 2 moons, which are very small. This first moon is Phobos. The first one, Phobos, has a diameter of about 13.67 miles, and the other, Deimos, is about 7.458 miles in diameter. These moons are very close to Mars. Both moons orbit Mars in completely different ways. Phobos completes one orbit around Mars in just a few hours. While Deimos takes about 30 hours to complete its orbit, Phobos is gradually getting closer to Mars and is expected to crash into it. Because Phobos is below the synchronous altitude from the start, due to which the gravity and tidal forces of Mars are gradually pulling it towards itself. Eventually, in about 50 million years, Phobos will get so close to Mars that it will break apart due to the planet's gravity, creating a ring of debris around Mars. It will be quite a sight to see at that time. Today, there are several missions underway across the world to Mars. So far, about 40 missions have been sent to Mars. These include orbiters, landers, and rovers. However, only about 16 of these missions have been successful. On November 5, 2013, the Indian Space Agency, Indian Space Research Organization, launched the Mars Orbiter mission, also known as Mangalyaan, marking a new milestone. On September 24, 2014, Mangalyaan successfully entered Mars orbit. This was India's first successful interplanetary mission, and with this mission, India also made its maiden footprint on Mars. In 2016, all of the 8 spacecraft sent to Mars by various agencies were operational. Out of these, 6 were in Mars orbit and 2, the Opportunity and Curiosity rovers, were on the Martian surface. What about the other missions that were either failed or lost their entire existence on Mars? And some are stuck in the Martian dust while others are buried under the red sands of Mars. These are the fates of our far-flung missions to Mars. Life has come from Mars to Earth. This is also a controversial issue, but we can't rule out the possibilities because we have found some tough microbes on Earth that could survive on Mars. Preparations are also being made to send humans to Mars. SpaceX and National Aeronautics and Space Administration could accomplish this by 2030, and we could see this happening in our lifetime. Living on Mars in the mystery of life will be just like searching, because there is no end to our imaginations. Friends, that's all for today.